I think that this work is going to blow your mind. At least it has mine, because I had an idea, I started working on it, and what has come has been so profound. And I'm grateful that you're all interested in the same topic, because I do think that when we come together and we form circles like this, amazing things happen. So welcome, welcome everyone. And I will go ahead and share my screen. And so just to save time, I think if we could introduce ourselves through the chat, I am going to make sure that everyone gets a copy of this chat afterwards, so that if you're sharing things or you're answering questions as we move along, so that we can engage each other, you may see some things that you want to have access to, because somebody says something, and so you'll have it in the chat. So we'll be using chat quite a bit today. And let me organize my screen. We'll also be going ahead and using the Google. I've got all kinds of windows open, but like I said, maybe you printed out the workbook, so you can handwrite notes. Sometimes people, I know, I heard iPads, whatever it works for you. I tried to give you a few different versions of the workbook, so that if you're someone who likes to work and take notes in the workbook, great, or you can use your own journal, doesn't matter, it's all good. What I will go through an introduction. I want to take just a quick minute to introduce you. Again, I'm so excited that we're here today. I'm going to be spending a few hours. We will take some breaks. Feel free if you need to take a break. We know that that happens. If you want to put yourself, keep yourself on mute unless you're talking or asking a question. Today will be more of me kind of talking and asking questions and having a few shares, but because there's a lot of material today, the idea is tomorrow there will be a lot more discussion and kind of diving into the depth. It's cool to have it be 2 days, because I don't know about you, but I'm one who loves to do a lot and then sit with it and then be able to come back and ask questions as it starts to soak in. And that's how this is designed, so that we could get the absolute most out of our time together. Let's see. So I talked about the business canvas. The other thing I want to mention is, if you just look through the workbook, you may think, oh, there's some review. I've already done some of this. And that's fine. But speaking from someone who's written a million words about money, which I wouldn't have ever thought was possible, there is always the opportunity to go deeper into things. So I'm going to push you that if something, the first glance at something or a question is, I've been there, done that, then it's your job to go deeper into it and ask questions if you're not able to go deeper into it. But my hope is that the instruction and the conversation is going to immediately put you in a position of like thinking in new ways. And so the things that you write about will be new, or they'll have a new element to them. And that's what this workshop is designed to do, is to provoke new thought, to give you an inspiration about what it is you're doing and seeing it in a new way, and being able to be so excited about it that you're able to create bigger vision for yourself. You're able to make more money. You're able to turn up the volume in your business, perhaps in your visibility and the way that you're showing up in the world. There are so many different outcomes that you're going to get from this. And my goal wasn't to like fire hose you with information, but definitely to expand thought and to give you some new things to think about that allow you to go deeper and to be more excited about what you're already doing. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I can feel it happening for myself, even as I worked on the deck this weekend. The other thing I want to mention is, for those of you who shared your business canvas, thank you so much for that. Don't hesitate if you haven't done it. You can still share it with me tonight. You could share it with me later. I'm more than happy to take a look at it. It will evolve, which is going to be really fun. You may even want to make sure that you take a snapshot and you print out what you've got now, so that when you start making changes on it, you notice what's happening and the shifts that you got as a result of being a part of today. because that's really fun to say, oh, I see where the difference is. I see where I was getting stuck and where you came out on the other side. So that's kind of exciting. And some of you have even uploaded it into the workbook, into the Google Doc, so we get to see each other's. I'm not sure if you meant to do that, but it's fine with me. But there are some that got shared in there, and I think it's awesome if you're okay with other people seeing it. It's great. Any questions that I'm not covering even before I dive into the presentation that would help you just know that you're in the right place? You can take a nice big deep breath.
I have one question.
Yes, hi.
I didn't know if you talked about when we're going to be taking breaks. It is.
Yes. Yes.
So I don't get up and leave when 2 minutes later we have a break.
Yeah, I've got them like strategically placed.
Okay.
But the other thing we could do too is just put a chat. Does anybody else need a break? And then probably there will be 5 people that say yes. So I won't necessarily read minds. I did put them in there, but let's go ahead and be interactive in the chat the whole time through. In fact, you're reminding me. Thank you so much. Yeah, I figured even at the top of the hour, it's nice stretch break. So I'm going to be watching the time. And in fact, on that note, I did not open chat. So I want to go ahead and figure out, I'm going to stop share for a second just so I can open. Oh, that didn't work. No matter how many years you play with Zoom, you always learn new things. Okay, there we go. Now I can see chat too. Okay, perfect. Thank you for doing the introductions. So helpful. Thank you for being here. Any other questions? If not, then just I will start going. Okay, so welcome to Profiting Through Thought Leadership. I am so very excited to share this with you. Feel free to ask questions in the chat, to come off of the microphone at any time and ask questions because I may not always notice it. I do want this to be engaging and sharing, and use chat to kind of share your thoughts as we go along, and I'll be paying attention to those. Just a high-level outline about what we're going to be doing together is we're going to be diving into part 1, thought leadership, part 2, marketing, part 3, what's next. We won't be getting into any project planning and coaching and that sort of stuff until tomorrow. However, questions are going to come up because I want to make sure that this is tailored to your situation. And if you're not making a connection between something I'm sharing and your own situation, then the best thing you can do is to speak up and to, bring up whatever question you have. There are some folks who couldn't be here live. I think Dawn is in Thailand, so she'll be watching the replay. So your questions also help her too, and anyone else who is catching this on the replay. The Google Drive, I will be going into that and sharing some different documents today and tomorrow, and some things we might not get to, but at least you've got them as a resource. I'll try and cover those. And then we're off and running. So the other thing, let's see, what else is there? We also, tomorrow when we get into it, we can always do shared screens. So feel free to share your Canvas and that sort of stuff. If you end up working on your Canvas again tonight, then you might want to share it with me again. Go ahead and do that. Just let me know. You can always send me an email if you're working on it, but it's a great way to keep track of some of the things that we're doing here. We'll do a lot more than what the Canvas explores, but just so you know that. So I wanted to start by talking about thought leadership, and something that got planted, a seed that got planted, and I did some research around it, is this idea of the warrior sage, and how we can, if you're brand new to my work or you've been studying for a long time, what I love to do is I love to bring the yin and the yang together. So I would say in many cases, the thought leadership is more of a yang discussion. Like today, we're going to be really into the meat of our businesses, the things that we're sharing with the world. We're going to be very much in the action forward mode, thinking about how this relates to the business that we're running. However, I am also always thinking about the narrative that's going on inside of your head and the person that you are and the person that you're becoming. And I think that there's this beautiful blend between this idea of thought leadership and also this idea of modern day warrior sages. And what I did was, when I was doing the research, I just want to read this to you because I think it starts the thought, the conversation around what is a warrior sage. A warrior is a brave, chivalrous, experienced fighter. A sage is one who's imbued with profound wisdom. The sage warrior is the one who fights her way beyond illusion and ignorance to embrace awareness and insight. It's an inner feeling, a feeling of walking alone on the banks of a river, in tune with all the elements around you, silent, serene, unassuming, and yet willing to fight. Struggles to be authentic, real, and true in a world that is enamored by illusion. She disciplines herself to embrace this life with a more profound perception and wisdom. She has no desire to fight. She only seeks to walk on mountains, along lakes and streams, and to be one with all things. She realizes leaders are not leaders merely because they fight. Rather, leaders are leaders because they don't have to fight. And interesting enough, we'll explore what that means, but the sage warrior fights to nullify the destruction forces of her ego. She fights to discipline her emotions and mind. She fights to step beyond the invisible fields of control. She fights for freedom, and she fights for the essence to be her own. Why I'm bringing this up now is, without any question, what I have seen is the more we understand and know ourselves, and the more we move beyond the stories of limitation, the more we come out into the world and we share our wisdom with others. Nothing that we're doing today is going to negate or intended to negate all this inner work that you've been doing on yourself to understand. It's merely about taking what you're learning about yourself and being able to bring this incredible wisdom that you've developed into the world in a bigger way. And that's why I think it's fun to think about, maybe the idea of thought leader isn't even all that sexy to you, but the idea of being a warrior sage is, then great, then think of it that way. Because I think it's really fun to realize that the reason we can have such a big impact in the world is because we have done all this work on ourselves. So let's talk about, what's going on out in the world, because, famous thought leaders are people that are very easy for us to pay attention to see out into the world. I picked some faces and names, Oprah being probably the most famous thought leader of all, in my opinion, Brené Brown. Each of these people stand for something. I mean, to me, Oprah stands for overcoming all odds to become, a billionaire, to have her hands in many different things, being able to be fully expressed, be an actress, be a talk show host, be a media empire controller, be a cook and a chef. I mean, be a farmer. Like, this woman just keeps reinventing herself. And I think she inspires us to reinvent and to see the potential in ourselves. Brené Brown overcoming this theme of shame, right, in our lives, being able to think about the boundaries of ourselves and how we can be bigger and also take good care of ourselves. Simon Sinek, Byron Katie, Marie Kondo, if you haven't read her book, she is a total paradigm shifter. She's taking and helping people who are living in clutter and moving into a new way of being, which is free of clutter. Mel Robbins, Louise Hay, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Simon Sinek, they each have messages about kind of This is what the world looks like before their thought enters the consciousness. And this is what the thought and the experiences look like after. They're moving us through paradigms, which I think what you'll see as we go into this work is each of us are doing this in a different way. And the more we understand how we're moving ourselves first through a paradigm shift, and then we're teaching other people how to make this paradigm shift, the easier our work becomes and the more we're able to make an impact. Now, let's bring it down kind of a level where maybe not as famous of faces, but so many people that are out there in the world making, touching millions of people's lives. Maybe not everybody knows their names, but these are some of the people that have inspired me. You may have heard Ruby Payne's podcast with me recently. She's shifting paradigms in the education system about teaching teachers how to speak to people, meet their students, their students and their parents of students where they're at, and helping them teach children how to be their best selves, how to maximize the educational experience. Chris Guillebeau, the founder of World Domination Summit, written several books. Tiffany Aliche, she's a FinCon hero. She's got millions of people that she is helping shift from struggling with money and budgeting into becoming budget mavens. George Kinder, one of my mentors up in the top right corner, he was the one who inspired me to realize that we could be talking about financial planning and we could also be talking about spirituality. He introduced me to this concept and he's become a good friend. Grant Sabatier, teaching people that they can go from nothing to having over $1 million in wealth in a very short period of time by following his method. Another one that I wanted to focus just a minute on is in the lower corner, Phil Jones. I met him last summer and there's a picture of him. This is his book, Exactly What to Say. Super simple book. This book is 135 pages long. It is very big words. So we're not talking about a huge amount of writing for this book. He is literally generating revenue of over $1 million a year in book sales alone for the self-published book. He gets paid about $50,000 to speak at events. He is a perfect example of a thought leader who took a very simple concept, which was knowing, here, the magic words for influence and impact. Picked out, an assortment of them, gave a little narrative. He is touching, lots of people's lives, obviously, with this book, and he would be considered a thought leader around some really simple ideas, yet big impact. I know some of you probably listened to Brooke Castillo's podcast, Sandy Krakowski with the pink hair that matches my shirt. She's been a mentor of mine this past year. Jonathan Fields. You can get a feel for each of these people, even by their pictures, that they each have sort of a way of being that they're bringing into their work. And so I'm going to stop there for a second and just check in. You probably all have people that have been thought leaders in your life and have made an impact. They may be famous, they may not be, but if you could even take a minute and just jot in the chat notes, like, this is somebody who's been a paradigm shifter for me, and put that in the chat notes and share that, because I think it's really helpful. And you may even say, if you want, what they do. I know Dottie shared Louise Hay. And what is a thought leader? A thought leader is someone who inspires others through innovative ideas, known for turning those ideas into reality, someone who creates a dedicated group of friends, followers, fans, someone who actively engages in bringing life to new projects, programs, and creative initiatives. This is great. Martha Breck, Werner Erhard, Gloria Steinem, awesome. Holly Riley, totally. And what happens as a result of being one? They don't necessarily go into it thinking about this, but we can see just by observation, they have an increased, base of people who are interested in buying from them. They might increase their rates and their fees, especially as they work one-on-one. What's interesting is the more thought leadership someone gains, I think the lower ultimately the prices can become when they're operating in a one-to-many paradigm, right? So they start to have a big impact. Increase free advertising. We all want free advertising. So as we step into this, people come and they want you to be on their summits. They want you to be on their radio shows. They want you to be on their podcasts. They want you to be on TV. They want to interview you for magazine articles, that sort of thing. People come to know you for what you do. People share your stuff, which is huge. This is so great. I love seeing these. People seek you out for your thoughts on your area of specialty. They want to know what you think. They want to know what your opinion is about something that might be happening in the world. In fact, a lot of media appearances, and the reason that people gain a lot of media exposure is they're able to take the thing that they're thinking about and focused on, and it happens to, and smash it up to a current event. And then through that connection of the current event, they get asked to come onto TV or programs or that sort of thing. So they also, which is really important, they have more financial resources to continue to develop the vision that they have, right? So it feeds unto itself. They build a following, and that helps them continue to do what they're here to do. What happens for us as we step into this is, I'd say one of the biggest things is we gain trust with our community. We gain this trust, which trust, I don't know about you guys, but like trust is something that is priceless, especially in today's day and time with technology and anybody being able to set up a business, set up a website. It's really easy to start a business. Anyone can self-publish a book. It's a lot easier to like be out there, but the difference between just presenting your ideas and being out there and being a thought leader is that there's a trust between you and the people you're speaking to. You can make a bigger impact. You can feel the impact of what you're doing in the world. You can increase leverage in your business, right? So this is the idea of one to many. You may be doing the same exact amount of work, but because you're touching a bigger number of people, you're able to, perhaps sell more things, make more money, you touch more lives. An even bigger thought, though, is understanding what I think happens as we step into this. And this is why I love the topic so much and why it intersects with my work so well, is I think that as we do this work, we start to understand at a deeper level why we are here in this life. What is the true meaning of our work and the legacy that we're leaving in the world? We get hit tomorrow by that infamous, bus sort of thing. Like, what have we left? As we step into thought leadership, we're creating a legacy, and we know that we're creating something that goes way beyond, the here and now. Somebody might be reading your books 10, 20, 30 years from now if you write a book, right, that has a lasting impact. For example, our videos may sit out there for forever. They may touch people in any place on the planet. Like, how cool is that? This is great. Thank you for sharing these. Why do many people not want to go to thought leadership? I would say that one thought, and you guys can add here too, so thank you for your participation. Help me with this. Why do we not do it? Why do we not think that we can step into thought leadership? A few things I jotted down was there's a responsibility that comes with it. Like the more people start listening to you, fear, Dottie, perfect. There's responsibility. There's the idea that if I'm going to be having all these eyes kind of watching me and reading me what I'm putting out there, then I really have to be authentic. I have to be like of integrity. That feels like a lot of responsibility. Maybe you don't feel worthy of it, like having all kinds of people paying attention. Don't think your ideas are unique enough. I think today, like if that last one hits home, we will be totally exploring that. Like that is going to be a huge, huge impact from this conversation. Oh yeah, Deb, requires departure from the tribe. So if you step out, um, in Australia, it's called tall poppy syndrome, where nobody wants to stick out because if you do, you get your head chopped off or something. So like if you are going to stick out from the tribe, what will those people think about you? Not feeling comfortable, afraid of what people might think, judgment, choosing the wrong message, so true. Uh, Not enough unique ideas. Okay, so you understand. Okay, these items. So this is good because I think this, as we admitted to ourselves, like these are the things that have sort of held me back. It's everything. Just admit it, because then it doesn't hold on to you. What if I'm not yet ready? Deep commitment. Oh yes, yes. Bring it on. Share these things, because when we share them, we start to poke holes in some of them, and I'm hoping that we're going to be poking holes in some of these today. What if I choose the wrong thing? um, and then this other piece is what I've been studying is this kind of common traits that I see shared, and it's kind of a leap. It's like going from, okay, why might I do it, but then what are they doing over there? What are they doing that might be a little bit different than what I'm doing right now, is how I'd approach this. What I have noticed, and Dawn asked me about this, and I'll give a little more description. The first and biggest thing that I've noticed, the common traits by these thought leaders, is that they're living outside of the paradigm that they're teaching about. And what I mean by that is there's a realization that they have gotten somewhere, that they have kind of gotten to the other side of the thing they're working on. At least well enough that when they look back to those that they want to help, they're able to say, with love and acceptance and appreciation for the condition of the person who's still struggling, right? It's super important. They have ultimate compassion. There's none of this, they don't get it kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that because it could come up. Instead, they look back and they think, I too was in your shoes at one point. And now I see what it looks like on the other side. And it's so valuable and so helpful, what I've learned on this journey, that I'm going to put my hand out and I'm going to help you cross these bridges, walk, take the stepping stones, follow the breadcrumbs. I'm going to help you kind of reach where I'm at, which is at this other side of the paradigm. And the more we're outside of one way of thinking, which is over here, thinking that there's whatever the challenge is, right? As you guys put the business plans together, you were telling me what the problems were that your audience is suffering with right now, what they're struggling with. So you're able to see that there's this whole way of thinking, this whole paradigm of thinking in the problem. And because you can see it and you know it's not real, you know that it's not their destiny, because you've been there yourself, you're on the other side of it. Does that make sense? Like you see what it takes to kind of start to change your life in a different direction. And now you want to help people. That's a big kind of part of what I see all of these authors doing, and these folks that are stepping into this idea of thought leadership. So they've developed expertise in their area of focus. Perhaps the expertise came first, and then they started to have the realizations of what it looked like for transformation. Expertise is different than transformation. We can learn head knowledge. Expertise is like head knowledge. I know what's going on over here. But transformation is different than expertise, because instead of it just being like rote memory, I can tell you this, I know that, boom, boom, boom. How I think of the other side, the transformation, is that it's sunk into your heart and the depths of your being. You are literally living this stuff. You are not just telling people all the mental stuff. You're actually embodying the thing that you're wanting to teach. Does that make sense? So expertise, head knowledge. Transformation is embodiment, is actually living the thing. And sometimes we're not totally there, and that's totally fine. Like, we're still learning how to embody it. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because like, I started my book because I thought I knew all the answers. Then I wrote a million words and I was like, oh, there's a new transformation. So we keep going through that transformation after transformation after transformation. One of the things that we're going to realize today is that no matter where we're at, we have something to share, even if we're going to continue to transform and change and shift and learn and grow in the future. And just and getting past this idea that we have to have it all figured out is also super important, because if we don't get past that and we don't see how much we really have to offer other people, then we won't stand out in our own right, in our own sovereign being, using Marissa's word. We won't stand out and bring the gifts that we have today to our communities. Let's see. They remind themselves of their value and desire to be in service. They're overcoming their fears on a regular basis, and they keep going, are willing to take a stand, even if people are going to call them wrong or, not accurate or what have you. And they're okay with the risk of being wrong. This already came up here already today, that what if I'm wrong? And I think we should explore that today and tomorrow, that there are going to be times when you're not sure. I wasn't sure about a lot of stuff that I've been working on. And yet, because I was able to stay with the discomfort of not being sure, I was able to create new things as a result. They also know their why. They have a strong feeling of why. So this is any questions or comments or clarifications? And you can come off of mute. Is this making sense? I'm taking a note. What will I have to give up to be a thought leader? It's a great way to, ask that question. Is there anything I need to give up? It's making sense. Thank you. Any comments? Let's see, what's the next slide? So this is kind of fun. So this is sort of, now that we know all of that, we know kind of this broad overview of this idea of thought leadership and sage warrior or warrior sage. I think this was something I just came in contact with. I know some of you might be fans of Stuart Wilde's work, but this poem I thought came perfectly at the right time. I accept myself. I am not perfect. I have aspirations to become more so, but I accept myself right where I am. Therefore, I can accept the life I'm living, for I have created it. Today is my day. I am what I am within whatever I find, and nothing can push me off that balance. I think this idea of being grounded in our ideas, our wishes, our dreams, our potential, our thoughts, and what we're excited about. That's, I think, what probably took me, got me so interested in this poem, especially, was nothing can push me off that balance. Like, the more I'm grounded in myself and the understanding of where I'm at and that that's perfect, then I don't get pushed off of my balance. And in that place, we're able to step out and be of service to other people. Because if we're not in some place of balance in our own way of being, then it's really tough to go out and serve in a big way and to step into this thought leadership. Does that make sense? Processing. So I wanted to dive into some stories of people that I've actually worked with, because I felt like, I knew their stories. I could share with you some of their experiences and what they've had happen just in the past couple of years. And, it really touched me, because yesterday when I was finishing this up, I sent notes to both of them. And I was like, I want to make sure you're okay with me talking about you. And at that time, I wasn't going to share that much, just a little bit. And both of these women were so gracious. They literally opened their whole business up to us and were like, the more I can share, the better. I want to help you, and I want to help whoever's listening to this message, because they were like, this work has really, really transformed their business and their life, and they wanted to share it. And I was really touched. It made me kind of emotional because I just didn't expect this. So the first person I want to talk about is Monica Louie. Some of you may have met her hanging out with me. She started her business 2.5 years ago. She had a business before we started working together, which was a blogging business about her family's journey through paying off debt. We met at FinCon. So I guess this year would maybe be 3 years. So 2.5 years ago, we met at FinCon, and I saw something in her, and we were dancing on the dance floor. It was funny because, if you've hung out with me, I can just see things that I can't fully understand or explain, but we're dancing together on the last night of FinCon. And on the dance floor, I was like, what are you doing? What's your business or something like that? And she was telling me as we're dancing, and I was like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. I see something really, really big for you. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know, there's something big. And so 2 months later, I think she reaches out to me. And in the course of that conversation, she's just sold her business, her blogging business, and she's ready for the next journey. And we worked together for about almost not even quite a year, maybe 8 or 9 months. And just like you may know, a lot of my work when I first started working with people is about helping them get out of their own way, finding the thing that keeps you from shining your light in a bigger way. Like, that's a passion of mine, and I do it over and over and over again, and Monica was no exception. And what Monica started telling me about 2 months into the process was, I really want to help people with Facebook. Like, I've been helping people just casually, but I really like it. I really want to help people like do their campaigns. And I mean, she was like abnormally excited about Facebook because I was like, that just doesn't sound all that interesting to me, but it just totally lit her up. And I was like, okay, let's lean into this. And one day we were kind of working through things, and I get to take credit for this one. I said, well, what about if we call it Flourish with Facebook? And she was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's what we're going to do. And by the time that idea came in, she had cleared out all these stories and was really ready. It was like the idea came as soon as she cleared stuff out, she was ready to step into it. And what happened next, I mean, I took her banner, but she has a podcast. She has a Facebook ads course. She's doing one-on-one coaching. She's been doing some really big things. And when I asked her to share some inside scoops, what she shared is, as she stepped into thought leadership about being and allowing herself to be an expert in Facebook and helping people figure out how to navigate Facebook ad campaigns. Her first year in business, she did 91,000. Her second year, she did 200,000. So 91,000, she probably had made $20,000 before the idea of Flourish with Facebook came in, and the rest happened very quickly after that. It just took off. 200, and then she said this last year was 260,000, and it's growing quite rapidly. She's got 700 students in her Flourish with Facebook course. She has 18 members on her team, and she's managed over 2 million in Facebook ad spend thus far. Now, this is a perfect example of somebody just being passionate about one topic and saying, that's it. I think part of the reason Monica had so much success so quickly is she was very single-pointedly focused on what she wanted to teach in the world, what she wanted to share, how she wanted to help people. Okay. So this gives you an idea of what it looks like at the foundational stages of somebody stepping into that. Now, if you go to FinCon every year, she's invited to speak about Facebook ads, free advertising. She's invited to go on a lot of podcasts and share her story for free. I don't think she actually does much in the way of advertising because she gets so much word of mouth advertising and referrals that supports her business. I think we all like that kind of business, right? We want that. But this is what's happened as a result of stepping into it. Any questions about this case study that I've missed because I'm so close to it? Just take yourself off of mute at any time. So another one I want to talk about is Amanda Walker. She had very similar story where before we started working together, she had a business. It was very successful, but I don't think many of you realize something about Amanda's business. She'd been doing it for, I think, 2 years before we worked together. And she was adamant when we started, I want no face-to-face coaching whatsoever. She had built a platform where she was helping people through kind of like they sent their meal plans into her. She would look at them, make sure that the macronutrients were appropriate, and she would send them back notes. But she did not want any face-to-face coaching on Zoom. She just wanted to have an email and send it back and forth. And I was like, wow, there's a lot more potential here. And she's like, yeah, I don't really get it. That's not who I am. Well, after working together and kind of focusing on what was inside of her, holding her back, which many of you guys have focused on, with me, what ended up happening is about a year into it, big breakthroughs. She came up with this idea of she started doing a little bit more and more of the one-on-one coaching, realizing it wasn't scary, that it was okay, she could do it. And the next thing you know, she comes into this idea, Feel Amazing Naked. Now, we're going to talk more and unpack these businesses even more later because they'll make more sense as we go into Eugene Schwartz work. But the deal is Amanda, different than Monica, is going after, what she does is she helps people improve their body image. So perhaps they want to lose weight. A lot of what she was focused on was around losing weight. Now, this has been a business that's been around for a really long time, different than Monica's business, right? It's a new topic. People were interested in Facebook. Amanda's working with something that everything has been said before. How do you lose weight? It's just ad nauseum. She is in a very, very mature kind of oriented business, and she needed a unique way to position herself in a very clouded, busy marketplace, competitive marketplace. When she came up with the idea of Feel Amazing Naked, created the Feel Amazing Naked podcast, started to coach around that, created a workshop around that, that was when everything changed for her. And so she also shared some metrics. She said she started a podcast about a year ago. She's had 50,000 downloads of the podcast. Email list size is actually only 33,000 people, but she's become a six-figure business. So it hasn't been about her email list. She doubled her revenue last year from 96,000 to 191, and she can see where she's going to be probably, I don't know if she'll double this year, but maybe another 50%. Over 500,000 monthly Pinterest views. And help women lose weight, pursue dreams of career, bigger risks, reignite fire in marriages, become parent and wife they deeply desire. She shared her big why is to help women have the confidence to rise to their higher purpose and for her to do the same and to create financial ease and experiences for her family. So these are two examples of sort of what thought leadership looks like. If you, again, have any questions, feel free to take yourself off. And I'm going to explain one really quick one that just very interesting. I've heard Todd Herman, when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, was sharing this, that many of you might know Susan Cain. She wrote the book Quiet, about introverted, how we as introverts can experience life in a magical way. explored in the beginning in her book Quiet, and now she coaches and speaks to, I think, a heavy orientation towards companies, you know, wanting to help the introverts in their companies. Well, last summer, well, for the past year, Susan Cain was creating a Train the Trainers program. And I knew about that from Pamela Slim was helping her, and all kinds of cool things happening in creating this Train the Trainers program. But what Todd shared last week is that that business has completely sort of combusted. The Train the Trainers and creating these training programs to help people to take the work, the Quiet Revolution work, and then actually teach it at a local level has imploded. And the reason being is it turns out that Susan isn't really interested in doing that kind of thing. And so she was kind of pressured, maybe just because it's like, this is what you do, you know, you're having this much success, you've got this best-selling book, you've done so much great work, now you need to train other people to do it. And it wasn't where her heart was. And so maybe now this just kind of, it's not even be in the hush hush, so you don't have to go share it publicly. But the thing is that she's in this period of like rethinking her business and what she wants to be, because even though you've got a great idea, it doesn't mean that you have to be all things to all people. And this was an example I wanted to share, that we still have to really trust ourselves and listen deeply inside of ourselves about how do we manifest, how do we bring these gifts and these things that we want to share with the world into creation, so that not only are they helping our audience, but they're also helping ourselves meet our, you know, deepest and most important wishes. Does that make sense? Anyone want to come off? And I'd like to just check in for a second. This is pretty much the foundation. Now we're going to be getting into more of the questions, but have I portrayed a visual and understanding of sort of why we're here talking about thought leadership and how important it is for those of us that are interested in it, how it can help our businesses?
I'll say a little something. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I also really appreciate you presenting this last one too, because I think for me, there's that fear that, like I was posted in the chat, like, what am I going to have to give up? And there's this awareness that for me, sometimes when I get started with something, it's like this engine that's just gets going, and then I lose control of it. It just goes into, and I can lose myself in something. And so this awareness that all along the way, there are always choice points, and, you know, that ability to say no, even if something big starts happening, like there's still, it's still really important to be checking in and to create what I actually really want to be creating, and not just necessarily like this opportunity presented itself to her and she said yes, even though, you know, she could have said no.
Yeah, and it's interesting, even if we take it one step further, she's an introvert, right? And the business, perhaps that this new level of the business was more of an extroverted business model. Like,
right.
Interesting. You know, who knows all the things, but like knowing ourselves as we go down this pathway of thinking the ways that we shape and morph our businesses, we can do it and still meet ourselves where our needs are met. And that would be super, super important to be paying attention to as we create it. I also think it's interesting too about getting focused. Several of you have many different businesses that you're operating or you're thinking about. I shouldn't say several, but like a handful of you have a few different initiatives. And from a standpoint of thought leadership, that's actually not ideal, because picking something is where, like, there's only so much time in the day. And as we start to narrow down our focus, it gives us more time and attention to focus on the thing. And some of us have to do a couple businesses by necessity. Some of us do it because we have a lot of interests. For me, I mean, my story is that I knew what I wanted to do as far as changing the way people think about money, but I didn't have enough knowledge or experience to actually create thought leadership in that capacity right in the beginning of my business. So what did I do? I became a business coach, and that's where the majority of my revenue came from for the many of the years. But what the book is allowing me to do is to actually shift gears now, because I know that I am not going to become a thought leader in business coaching. That's not what I'm not going to be that. And in fact, I'm getting to the point where if I'm not careful, I dilute my message by having too many interests. And I won't have as much success in the thought in shifting a paradigm around money if I'm like back and forth, for example. So each of us have to find our own path, but I use my own experience of sometimes we have to do it, because that's the cool thing is that there was a convergence for me in people coming to me about business and money, and then finding the stories that I would write about when it pertains to money. So I was able to see an intimate look of how how we can change our relationship with money and how it can actually help people become thought leaders. Isn't that interesting? But that wasn't something I envisioned early on. What if your true nature is to have several interests? Awesome. It's a great question. I think that we can have lots of interests on the personal side. We don't have to have all of those be business oriented. I think that what we just need to pay attention to is, what do we want to be known for? Number one. What do we want to be known for? Number one. And then from that place, if those other interests kind of dovetail into that, awesome. If they conflict, then we need to look at that. That'd be one place to start. Hopefully that helps a little bit, Vicki. Do you want to know more?
Well, yeah, I do, because because there are, I haven't done a lot of research on it. You're so good with research, but there's actually personality types, and often related to, as you know, I do chakras, the upper chakra personality types. Mm-hmm. They spread out in many directions. The lower chakra personality, the root chakra, which, by the way, both examples, successful examples you gave, would be the lower. They were both doing root businesses. Whenever you do root chakra, you make money. You get singularly focused and you go forward. But it really doesn't fit who I am. I'm actually kind of amazed that I've gotten to where I have in thought leadership. And I think it's only because I chose the one thing that was everything, chakras. Chakras are one thing, but they represent everything. So I get to do everything while doing one thing. But even now, I'm wanting to go back to my really deeply being called back to other things. I'm being called to shadow. I'm being called to my writing. And it's serious. Like, it's a deep calling like you and I get from spirit. And I cannot ignore it. I cannot do anything but. So I don't want to just get it shoved. I feel just a tiny bit we're shoving it aside, like, well, just pick one. No, it'd be telling her, well, just pick something extroverted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
no,
totally.
She's an actual introvert. She's an introvert. If I'm someone who actually has to grow many branches on my tree, then can be a real disservice to myself to try to do the thing that would actually let me be more successful in business, you know, and make more money and build more followers in one area. And, you know, so I'm still curious. I'm still grappling with that.
Mm-hmm. But you have, I mean, how many followers do you have on YouTube?
Well, I have thought leadership wise, I have massive success. I have I've sold over 100,000 tattoos. I've had 2 million views or more on my YouTubes. I've written a book that has 5 stars on Amazon. I've written a second book that I self-published because I didn't want to give it away to the publisher. You know, I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of that stuff. And I've made a living at it, but it's nowhere close to the kind of money that these people that have oriented toward root chakra. So I would say, thought leadership wise, I have people every day on YouTube, almost every single day, tell me I've changed their life or I've helped in some way. It's gotten to that point with over 300 videos. So this is the split for me, Lisa, and this is important because I would say I have really succeeded as a thought leader. I'm really respected as a thought leader, but I'm not making much money at it because I'm thought leader primarily to my tribe, which are people that they're not buying the stuff. They're not out in business. I'm not doing the Chamber of Commerce speeches. I'm a good speaker. speaker, but they don't want to hear about their chakras necessarily. So it's tough. It's like I first have to sell what I want to sell before I can sell it. I can't just go there and there's a market for it. So
and we're going to be exploring these things too.
yeah.
I hear you. And I think each path, the idea with this workshop is around provoking you to ask yourself these questions, and seeing what comes, because I hear you. And I also want to watch the, even the tattoos. I'll just give you one thing back. The tattoos are very grounded because there's a physical thing that you're selling, right? So the money that's come into your business has been as a result of something that was a grounded activity.
Right. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. Only when I seem to be doing the grounded versions do I make money. And ironically, I've come to some kind of end cycle. It's clearly with the tattoos, because some weird things are happening with those now, and some weird things are happening with YouTube. So they're re-monetizing and doing strange things on YouTube. So all I'm saying is that I've managed to, I think I tick off and fit almost everything on the thought leader thing. But I'm a thought leader for this up here, for like, and not for what's better for your business and how do I make you more money. So it's hard to tell. So I'm not making a good enough living as a thought leader for chakras right now.
And I think you're in the right place, because I just want to encourage you to continue to ask some of these questions and see what comes out on the other side.
Sure, that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so, we've got our workbook, and you may have been taking some notes, but what I'm going to do is, some of these things we'll go through more quickly because you've already started to answer them in the business canvas. But what we could do is take a quick break, just because we're at a part where we're going to start asking ourselves questions and getting into some introspection. So why don't we take a 5-minute break, bathroom, drink. Perfect example of like building something and having a thought, right? And then having the community be every bit as important as you are to the process. I truly believe that. That's, I think, I'm just so excited about that. So thank you, everybody. Welcome back. So we're gonna start diving into some questions. And what I'd love to do is go ahead, you can journal, but I'd love it if we could share some things here. And I know we already started our conversation with doing our introductions, who you are, where you are, what you do. But if you could take a minute right now and, write down either in the chat or on your piece of paper, just credentials and expertise, confirming what it is that you are tapping into. It may be everything. It may be just very focused around the area that you specialize in. It's your piece of paper and your notes. But if you could write down what your credentials are and what your expertise is, we'll start there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be looking at faces to know if you've completed it. So once you complete a question, even if you have like a thumbs up or something like that, then I will be able to know that you've completed that before we go on. Amazing how much we have accumulated. It's funny too, because sometimes we forget some of this stuff and we don't think about bringing it in. It's like, oh my gosh, people probably would like to know that I am a certified financial planner, whatever it is. I also think it's interesting. I know some folks have designations that aren't necessarily up their alley, but when I think when we can craft a good kind of one-liner about why that's applicable, like I have, a JD, Catherine, and this is what, even if it's something like a joke that you sort of make at it. And I realized that that wasn't, the thing that I wanted to do, but it's still being able to bring it up, and it adds credibility in the fact that you have that kind of diligence and that responsibility, and it's a trust builder that you've gone beyond. Ooh, this is great. Thank you, Dottie. It was in my way, so I gave it up. I'm losing weight, I've learned. Oh, this is great. Harvard Business Publishing. Amazing. I heard Dory Clark the other day talking about how she was able to leverage her Harvard Business Publishing to meet other kind of thought leaders, because she's like, I write for them and so do you. And then she'd get lunches and stuff organized with people. Next thing you know, she's on their podcast or something. So finding common, there's another thing. When we talk about our past and we use that in our bio and we explain it, it may be that one inroad where somebody's like, oh, that's my story too. I was an attorney and I can't do it anymore, and I want to hire you because you've already figured this out, right? So amazing how people can relate to us when we share our backstories. I did my second article for Huffington Post, wrote about like the 50 jobs that I've done. It might not be 50, it might have been 35, but I wrote all of them. And it was one of the most enjoyable feedback, because people were like, you did that, and it's really fun. So, because they show things about us. So this is great. I'm going to go on to the next one. I think we've got enough. Where am I? What are you committed to and passionate about? Certified fire protection specialist. I bet there's a good story that you could provide in that one. There you go. So what are you committed and passionate about? So that would be the next one to write about and share. It's funny because we don't think there's a straight path or straight explanation, but we live in a very crowded, competitive marketplace. And many times it's the unique, weird things that we've done in the past that actually give people they become very intrigued about us. We think the linear path, but in reality, it's all these weird things that have done. Creating safe and sacred space for women and children. Beautiful. Marissa, that's awesome. Wow. So what are we passionate and committed to? Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Mine and everyone else's. Welcome, Deb. I'm so glad that you're able to join us. Second, Deb. Good too. You're here. That's great. Leaving an inheritance for our children, children's children. Wow. So that's really interesting, because I assume you're saying this is your personal passion. So imagine bringing that into, Robin's a financial advisor, and imagine bringing that into the discussion, Because all of a sudden you start to picture this, you create a story that people are like, oh, that story she's thinking about for herself is something I want. If she's personally passionate about it, I want some of that too. Let's do this together. Rather than it being, you know what, you're trying to sell me something. Now it's like, I just want to be part of that same vision that you're sharing with other people, helping women peacefully create abundant wealth. And what that means, what that peacefully means, also is good to know. Committed to and passionate about helping people be their best. Tech professionals who introverts tend to be rational. Beautiful. This is great. So, okay, it looks like you guys have completed this. So now it gets just a little more, more challenging. So this what if futures is very interesting, because what we're trying to do is gain and give ourselves more to pull from as we're thinking about creating our leadership and the things we speak about and the things that we teach about. And so when we get into the what if futures, it helps evoke some new thoughts. So you don't necessarily have to answer all of these questions. That's why they're all on this page, is that you might pick one or two. But what I want to do is have you think for a moment. You might even close your eyes and focus in on the future. And so as you think about what your expertise is combined with your passion, what do you see? What do you want to see the future looking like? You know, when it maybe you might think of a person that you've served who was in a really bad place or really struggling, and then now you can look and see what their life looks like on the other side. And now maybe you start to see that replicating. You see more and more and more people creating this thing for themselves that you're passionate about. If more people are creating this for themselves, what does that look like in the future? What does the world look like when more people are doing this thing? How does that make you feel? What thoughts come to mind? Maybe what it's doing is it's helping you sort of notice the life cycle that people are going through as they work with you, and deepening kind of your vision of the future and what you want for them. And just see what comes through that. What do you want to see in the future? What are you committed? You know, as you look at that group of people that you're serving and you see what's happening for them, you know, does that help you understand what you're committed to in a bigger way? What are you committed to bringing into reality in the future? And write about that. It may also be, what problems do you think aren't necessary for people to have because you've been through this already yourself? You can write about that. Mhm. Mhm. And Marissa, I'm reading that question. My sense is that's a good one for even for tomorrow. So I mentioned using these little sticky pads. I would write that question down about the the two different focuses, because I think it's going to come up a lot tomorrow, and focus on kind of the one that's the future that you're wanting to see. I think they do tie together, like you're saying, but focus on that. Everybody answer the question. Still need some more time. Just thumbs up if you got it. Okay. World where people take responsibility for their problems, no blaming. Oh, yes, I want in that world. Mm,
May I speak?
sure.
I remember when I was in my 20s, mid 20s somewhere, and I went to my first EST seminar with Werner Erhard. And I remember screaming in my head, but I don't want to be responsible for my life.
Mm, mm-hmm.
I want everybody else to be at fault and to fix everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've come a long way.
You have.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And even just that one flip of the switch is huge, because now you get to be on the other side of transformation when you go back and help people. And I know, Dottie, you're like at this cusp of really owning it and standing in your power and bringing your ideas into making money in your business. And I kid you not that, remember how I talked earlier about, like, there's the head space of owning something in your head, and then there's the embodiment. The cool thing about doing a business and and receiving money for the activity is that you actually become more embodied in the thing. So when you take responsibility for your life and your business in this case, and one way of doing that is saying, pay me because I'm going to help you, you become more embodied in the thing that you're actually teaching. It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's fascinating. Beautiful. Oh, this is beautiful. Anybody?
And that led me to last September, at the age of 71, giving up a lifelong addiction of sugar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm still there, and I'm down 36 pounds.
Woo. And such a good story, and so easy to share with others. I'm passionate about it and I'm living it, and this is an example of the outcome that I'm getting. And so what I would do with that, the next step, Dottie, is take it and write stories about what a world looks like when someone isn't addicted to sugar, what their experiences look like. You see that? What the future looks like if you've got a group of people. And excuse me, it would be like the people who have had a lifelong struggle with sugar, and then what does it look like on the other side for them, and start creating a story about what that looks like for you and for the people that want to come to you. Because the storytelling, and Marissa will back me up on this, like, it is in the story for many of us that's going to make all the difference in people being able to understand what we're talking about, being able to bring it into a really tangible place of understanding. And it goes for everybody. The more we can tell stories about these things, it's a huge, I think a lot of us have resistance about writing stories about our clients, but I'll tell you, there's nothing, even if it's never shared with anybody outside of yourself, writing the story of what this person looks like and the trials and tribulations they go through connects us to our audience in a really deep way. And that's what this What If Futures can help us do. So we go to the future and then we come back and say, well, what's it going to take for them to get there? I'm not sure that we're going to have a lot of time to go into it, but if I were to expand on this, this what if future is kind of like what I had to do to be able to come up with the I Prosper process. So when we see a future out there that we want to help people get, there is a lot of merit in creating a process of what we do and where we take people to help them get there. If you want the easiest way to get tangibility and leverage in your business, it's in having a process. And I know, Dottie, we've been focusing on that a little bit last week, but like, think about the process. And so sometimes we have to write the story. I had to write some of these stories in my book before. I was like, I couldn't see, it seemed so complicated. There were so many things people had to go through. And I was like, that's not gonna, oh yeah, there's this really long process. It might take us a couple years. You'll be good. Just trust me. Like, how does that land? It doesn't land. But I sent out one email a year and a half ago when I was working on the book, and I had these 8 steps, and I said, does anyone want to come play with me as I figure out how to finish my book? Here's the 8 steps. And I had more response to that one email by just saying, these are the steps that I think I take people through. Will you come and help me figure this out? People were like, sign me up. Sign me up. I want to see that. Like, okay, it's not quite as easy to sell it anymore that way because that one time was done. But the book, it led to the book. So like, people love processes. Confusing world, lots of things going on out there. They're like, oh, she's got a process. A, B, C, D, there I am. So that's what we might get out of this. And I want to encourage it. And maybe tomorrow, if anybody wants some work or some help on figuring out what that process is, please bring that to the conversation. So the next question is let's narrow down and focus on unique qualities. What's most unique about your passions and your credentials? What is most unique about bringing this all together? You may have already shared it in the unique value proposition. For many of you who did share it, I kind of added a few things or asked questions, and I actually saw that a lot of people didn't even complete this one, or they completed unique value proposition. Where they got stuck was competitive advantage one, right? Your what was unfair advantage. So unfair advantage to me is like taking it one step further. But what is that for you? You bring it all together. What does it look like? Go ahead and share, because I think I'm guessing that some people are a little bit stuck, but if somebody's got something, they share it, that will help other people. Most unique about your passions and your experience. My ability to see intuitively and clearly identify the unique story in human beings and businesses. Oh yeah. And I'll tell you, Deb makes short little videos that are mind-blowing. She can take a whole person's whole entire 60 years on the planet and put it in like 2 minutes. So that's her special gift, right? And so she helped me. She was the first one to see my trailer the other day, and she's like, you guys, I'm so glad. Maybe Deb saw it before I took it down, because one Deb saw it and the other Deb saw it, and one was like, Deb Esposito was like, there's some things missing. Tenacity and willingness to be there for people who need someone to trust, which is a big deal in financial advising, right? So this is where I love the Francis Buckner, and we're going to be moving into this. It's like where our greatest passion meets the world's greatest needs. That is what all of this is sort of bringing us towards. The things that we not just are passionate about, but we have some experience, we have some expertise, we have some qualities and gifts, maybe just earned from working at it so hard, combined with like, what is the world's greatest needs? It's that meeting of those two. But right now we're like, what's the greatest thing that we know we're bringing in. Anyone stuck on it? It's okay. You can take yourself off of mute. It's important. Thumbs up, got it? So good, so good. So going on, the next question is, why are you believable in this area? Why do people believe that you can help them with the thing that you're interested in helping them with? So Katrina, I think that this is the answer to this question. My own experience of living through the growth I'm offering to others. This is where something like a process is so powerful, because what you said is true, but there's a lot of people who've lived through what you've lived through. I mean, not exactly your story and your experiences, but like, why can you help them? Taking risks to create more security. I'm not sure if I totally understand that. Deb Conway, seeing the shares is helping me. Yeah. So why are you believable? This is hard. This is a hard one, I think, because we're kind of going outside. Sometimes we have to ask other people, why do you think that you would listen to me on this? Especially those of us who sort of have some inner critic stuff going on that kind of gets in the way. I'm certain about the process and how it helps. Certainty is definitely helpful, but what helps them be certain in your certainty? Part with clients. Yeah, experience. Like I've already done this for a lot of other people. I mean, it's interesting though, because that's not as powerful as, it's like, we need that. I use that a lot. And also, I mean, the embodiment, struggling to keep up but taking all in. Okay. Feels heard and seen. Find that my communication of their essence accurately articulates. So you're showing them. Case studies, super powerful. Yep. Case studies. Transparency, huge. Humility. Sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but you know, if somebody gets up and immediately they're like, because we live in a noisy world, when someone comes up and they say, I don't actually know the answer, you know, like admitting what we don't know can actually build more credibility about what we do know. So we're not trying to be all things, all people, or say that we've got it all figured out, but we can use that sort of humility to gain trust and understanding. And it's like, but I am going to just share what I do know, rather than having to come across as some expert who's figured it out. Who trusts people that do that kind of thing more than the ones who are like, got it all figured out, it's all fancy and perfect and dialed in, like in our humility. So each of us are going to find a different thing, but this is meant to provoke it, because it is important to be thinking about what are the things. Because you know what you might have happen is you may push really, really hard on this one and hit up against some resistance. And it's actually in letting go where you find the things that you will help people know that you're a good guide for them. And like if somebody's really scared, do they want an aggressive salesperson? Absolutely not. They want the opposite. So what does that look like in establishing believability for the thing that you're providing? Oftentimes it's in being very creative in the way that we sort of look at resistance in its face and see what comes. Vulnerability is powerful. Thank you. So okay to go on? Okay. So why are you the right person to help solve their problems in the area of expertise? So this might just be a summary statement. You know, just imagine if I were to just ask you, why are you the best person right now to help somebody with this thing that you're helping them, that you want to help them with? Just let that pour out of you. For those of you who are used to kind of putting pen to paper, this would be a very intuitive thing to just see what comes out. Don't even let the head answer this one. Let the heart answer this one. This energy about caring so much might come through. When I often hear these quotes about women will be the ones who change the planet, that it's our time, and that the reason that the divine feminine and the feminine energy and this caring presence and the things that we care a lot about, this heart path, don't ever discount it. Our ability to care deeply about the things that we're working on and sharing that care. I think sometimes we hold back on that because it's not done traditionally in the world that we live in. The masculine world isn't been positioned as one of care and compassion and support. Or sometimes when it's done, you're kind of like, there's an ulterior motive. But many of us are going to do this work, whether we get paid for it or not. That's how passionate we are about it. And there is nothing wrong with owning that. Owning, I really, really like helping people. Sometimes I'll even say, I don't even know if people believe it, but I don't really care. I'm like, you know what? I just really, really, really enjoy helping. And I'm okay saying that because that's how I feel. And I think it carries a certain weight with it and a certain energy. And when people I've never met before in the Facebook, in the Mindful Millionaire group, post that I love you, and I'm saying I love you back, I'm like, they know how much I care. And we each have that. I think the only thing that may be a little bit different in what I'm doing than what other people might not yet feel comfortable doing is I'm willing to kind of stick my neck out there, and I've surrounded myself with people who allow me to do that on a regular basis, allow me to tell them how much I care. And the more I do it, the more I try it and I don't fall down, the more I do it. I think this is where we all come together and really hold space for each other. Maybe you're the right person because you care bigger than anybody else about what you're working on. Don't hold that back. Let that come through one way or another. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one. The next question, and I think I thought that this might be provoking some follow-up for tomorrow, is when it comes to the products and services that you're currently offering, as you get into this work and you think about it, might there be some tweaks to the things that you're doing now that this work together might be provoking, or that you want to pay closer attention to? It could be in the product, it could be in the service, and it could be in the messaging that you're currently using as you lean into this. But that might be a follow-up. That's a good follow-up question for tomorrow. If you want to talk about it, or you want to get some help, or you want to present, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm bumping up against, and what might it look like in version 3 or version 25 or version 1. Yeah, the survival. Oh gosh, story of my life. That's a tweaking. Okay, you came to the right place. Well, it's good. I think all of us, I'm guessing that we all want to continue to tweak and adjust and get feedback, from our community here. Okay. So let's see what, I think we've done this, and I don't want to, I knew that we might keep going.
Would you go back to the previous slide, please?
This one right here?
Yes.
Okay. And you also, if you didn't already see it, you all have copies of this presentation in the Google Drive if you're able to get access to it. Are you okay? Did you get what you needed?
Yeah, I took a picture. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I'll come back to it.
Okay. So what I want to do is I want to kind of summarize a few things about thought leadership in what we've explored, but we're going to start getting more into kind of messaging and clients, target clients, and communication, and how we, there's a word. It's like how we take this sort of big stuff and we start connecting it into our day-to-day experiences of how we're communicating things. But before we do that, I just want to touch on a few things. I interviewed Ken Honda a while back, and he's published, I don't know, 7+ million copies of his books. And so I would consider him in Japan a thought leader, self-help thought leader. And so it was really cool. And we were talking, and I said, how do you do it? I think I must have been inside of some pain or problem. And I said, how do you do it? Touching all these lives and having people reach out to you, and the criticism that can come too, as we take a stand for something we really believe in, and people don't always agree. And he said, great advice. He said, as long as I am focused on being in service of other people, I literally create like a perfect, he didn't say it this way, but like purple magic bubble of that stuff not bothering me. if I am in service of others, if I am always back to how can I be in service of others, it doesn't cause me any grief to be accessible to all these people and to be out there with these books and all this stuff and making an impact. He said, but if I turn the attention towards myself, that's where I get into trouble. That's where things start to fall apart. That's where I really struggle. When it's all about me and what I'm going to get out of it, I end up suffering. When I'm focused on who I'm serving, it becomes a beautiful journey. So that's what I'm saying here. I'm sharing that. You win when you help others win. Continuously seeing yourself as a force for good, a force for what you care about, that you get to multiply goodness with this activity. When I'm connected, I'm protected. That's great, Marissa. And also, I think playing with this idea that I can't speak for anyone but myself, but when I'm going outside of my comfort zone, I am at my most creative. I am don't have to go way out, just enough that I'm like pushing myself and knowing that I'm reaching uncharted waters. It's very stimulating to me. And that energy becomes infectious, I think, to other people. Hence even doing something like this today. So checking in, because there's this thing of like I want to be peaceful. I want everything to be awesome. I want it to be all perfect and wonderful and magical. And I want to get up and have no conflict whatsoever in my life. And what I've learned is that is actually not a very, I don't really create anything in that space. I just sort of sit there and it's awesome. but being outside of my comfort zone allows me to figure out new ways to share and help other people. So there's a nice balance of the yin and the yang. I think that's when these really great things come about. So the other pieces is celebrating the wins. It's like a yoga stretch. You don't want to go way out or you'll pull a muscle. Oh, that's so good. But just enough to feel the stretch. Honor, ask for feedback. That's been a huge one. I think that we are shaping things. We don't have to have all the answers. We should not ever hold ourselves to that standard. We should know that blind spots is a natural part of being a human being, and that we get so close to our ideas and our kind of way of being and seeing the world that it's very powerful to present it to other people and get their feedback and learn. Not that they necessarily change our course. There's going to be plenty of people where you're like, yeah, that's not exactly what I was looking for. So Michael Port, speaker and former actor that I was training with last summer, he's like, we need to be super clear about managing the feedback process, telling people exactly what we want and what we don't want, because sometimes it's not helpful. I could be better at that. I'm like, what do you want to tell me? I have a pretty big capacity for feedback, but not all of us are that way. And there are times where I'm like, yeah, I probably should have been more specific. Can we have multiple whys? I'm sure we can. I think so. That even came out with Amanda. She had a couple of whys. I'm sure we could have multiple whys. And don't allow failure to stop you. And always remember your why. And you can have multiple whys. So, okay. How are we doing on time? Stretch break, maybe just stand up, dance around, something like that. Just because keeping the energy moving is always a good idea. But if you need to run to the restroom, feel free. But I'm not going to stop because I want to make sure and just keep going. But I am going to kind of just take a little stretch. And let's see. So this next part, like I started to say, is I wanted to go macro with the thought leadership and give us some things to be thinking about sort of the big picture, because here's kind of a little thought behind I think that a lot of times we get focused on all the mechanics of bringing our business into success, and and we're like, oh, there's this guru and they're saying this, and then I do this, and it becomes all about the execution, which is important. And unfortunately, like, this is where we get sold a lot of stuff that, like, I wish that people were better at saying, if you do not buy this unless X, Y, and Z, like, you've met these criteria. But they don't. Like, they kind of sell it to everybody, and you buy things and you're like, I really wasn't ready for that thing. And so part of the reason I wanted to go macro was to, like, make sure that, like, that foundation is really strong about what we're here for, what we're wanting to communicate, what we're trying to bring more of in the world, and then our connection to that message at a high level picture. And at the same time, drill down into, it may be review for some of you, it may be brand new information, but there is a whole philosophy behind marketing that I think gets completely missed. And you may have seen some of my messages, maybe yesterday, I'm like, some of this stuff is like basic stuff that nobody ever shares. And therefore we're literally buying solutions and doing all kinds of practical things, but we're not paying attention to, like, the overarching message of what marketing is all about. And therefore our message, when something doesn't work, it's because we haven't had enough experience and understanding of sort of the entry point of understanding our audience. So when we put all this stuff together, and we put a launch together, and we put communication together, it misses the mark of what we're actually trying to communicate. How many people have had that happen to them, where you put something out and you're like, yeah, I don't know if anybody's listening. This is really tough. And then what happens when we do that? We're like, it must be me. They don't want what I'm selling. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, like, they must not want it. But in reality, it's because we didn't really step back big enough in the strategy of what's happening. And we ran off and did the execution without actually doing some really important work in the beginning. And I think that's what I wanted to try and help you with today, with what we're about to dive into. And I get to think, it's so funny. I've known about this book. I looked at this book, but I wasn't willing to spend the $500 to buy this book. And thankfully enough, this book was out of print. It's called Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. And every time I went to buy it, it was between $300 and $500, maybe more. But recently, this company, Titans Marketing, bought the rights from Eugene's wife, and he's republishing it. Now you can get this book for about $135, I think, with shipping. I will strongly recommend it. What's cracks me up is I've been taking a copywriting class for the past couple of years with some of the best copywriters on the planet. And they do not explain that pretty much everything they teach is from this book, nor have all the other people that are, like, making a fortune off of this book. They're literally taking the ideas from this book. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you, buy this book if you want to learn more about some of the things I'm about to present, but it is very inspired by this book. It was written in the 60s, folks, and it's still just as valuable today. Now, granted, when he talks about marketing cigarettes, it's not very attractive, but that was what was going on in the 60s. So, name of the book again is Breakthrough Advertising. I'll put the link. I'll make sure you guys all get the link to Titans, because you can still pay $500 for it, but I just found a way to not have to pay $500 for it. So, super cool. But we'll be talking about this book because it's the philosophy behind what's going on in the psyche of the people that we're communicating with. Okay. And it's super, super important. Does that make sense? Like, we need to be inside of the experience of what's going on before we can craft messaging that actually speaks to our community. And And what's funny is even though he's a direct marketer and he's very focused on writing an email and a headline, what's going on here is actually understanding why people buy stuff. And it literally points out why we're making tons and tons of mistakes all the time, and why I've actually struggled for the past 5.5 years. And why I struggled even as a financial advisor. It's like that big of a deal. So if you get what I'm about to share with you, everything is going to change in your life. And you are going to want to come back and listen to this again and again, because I'm trying not to fire hose you with lots of information, but it's going to take some time to get it. Okay. Fair enough, but it's big. Okay. So it's subtle, but powerful. So the first thing I want to say is, what's the secret to all marketing? It's you and your understanding. You cannot outsource the core foundation of your whole entire business, which is sales and marketing. Nobody can do this for you. And if you do abdicate this responsibility, there's a good chance you will waste a lot of money. You will pay people for things that they don't actually help you with. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that they probably don't know what I'm actually about to share with you. And you are the one who needs to take this responsibility. Thank you, Deb, for doing that. The power is inside of you, the belief in yourself that you can do and think about what I'm about to share with you, and your ability to bring your ideas into reality. And literally with what we're about to talk about, you don't even need to hire a copywriter to do stuff for you, because you're going to understand the inside kind of thing of what's going on. And yes, it's not going to happen just instantaneously. Like I said, I've been working with, I've been learning about storytelling because I saw how powerful that was, because that's a very, very powerful way to share what it is that we're doing with other people. But I've also been working with copywriters too, because I knew there was something I was missing, and I was like, but where is it? And I got parts of it in copywriting, but I will say in the course that I've been taking with Joe and Rai, they're awesome. It's been very helpful, but they're still approaching it very, very tactically and not giving the core message. So I'm out there trying to create a launch page, a sales page, a sales letter, but I'm not totally understanding what I need to understand behind even that. So that's what we're going to be diving into here. Okay. Everybody with me? So deep breath. Maybe even a grounding where you squeeze all the parts, because we've covered a lot of ground, but you just sort of bring all your energy back in. And you know that if something misses you now, that you'll be able to go back, because we're recording all of this. So I felt like this was the biggest tool that would help you in taking your genius and bringing it into the world so more people can hear your message. That's the whole reason I'm bringing this in right now. Okay. It can happen in meeting a person at a networking event. It can happen in an email that you send out to your community. It can happen on a Facebook post. It can happen anywhere that you touch other people. Okay. So I just want to say that, because if I get specific about something, I just want you to know it's the same. It applies everywhere. So like I said, marketing strategy based on Eugene Schwartz in his book, Breakthrough Advertising. So how he starts out explaining some of this is that we are conceptual midwives helping to give birth to new markets for our products. How cool is that? That means women are perfect at it, right? Because women midwives, not too many guy midwives. I know that they're out there, but conceptual midwives helping to give birth to new markets for our products. And again, you can adapt that to fit your situation. Remember earlier we were talking about how Monica was looking at a brand new marketplace for her products. Amanda's approaching something that's been that we've been talking about for 50 years. How do you lose weight? So you adapt it, but we're the midwife to this message. We make sense of our markets as we test it, evaluate it, and understand its scope. So the more we can test and understand and evaluate, the more in tune we are to what's going on. And so I'm going to be giving you tools to do that. But we do not ever, ever, ever create desire. We do not create desire in the world. I misunderstood that. That was one of my big problems. I thought I was creating desire with what I was doing. Instead, we channel and direct desire. Okay? It continues. A perfect example he uses, really funny, going back in time. Things don't really change that much as we think they do, at least when it comes to human beings. Back in 1954, the cars that everybody wanted to buy had horsepower galore. It was all about big, heavy, fast machines, right? So they would go really, really fast, a muscle car kind of thing. The Hornet, the Cadillac, the Chrysler all offered solutions to meet that desire of horsepower. And they won big time. Ford decided that it was all about safety, and they created a vehicle that was oriented to safety. And they lost their shirts in the year that they launched this car. Can't remember what it was. And the next year, sure enough, they joined the bandwagon and they created a product that met the desire of the marketplace. Okay? This has happened over and over and over again. Ford was trying to create desire in safety. The other folks were looking at the desire that was going out in the world at that time, and they met it, and they succeeded. Really simple, kind of, it's like, of course. Well, it's funny because when we start thinking about ourselves, but mass desire must already be there. You cannot create it, nor can you fight it. Your goal as a business owner is to figure out what the desire is and then tap into the desire with your offerings. Which means you want to find the sweet spot between the mass desire, which is what I was talking about earlier, and the connection with your deepest passion and credentials and the things that you bring into the world. You're looking for mass desire. This is the secret to success. No one who became a bazillionaire or millionaire or anything didn't figure this out in some way, shape, or form. When we were building our wealth, we did it through building houses. We were in a time where I was really good with money. My husband was really good at building houses, and people wanted to build these houses that we were creating. Greatest passion, credentials combined with the market, boom, we made a lot of money. Okay, not rocket science, but many of us are making this way more complicated by focusing on all the tactical stuff. We're missing the whole point of what we're doing by doing all this running around and kind of, it's got to be my perfect sales launch page. It's got to be my perfect email letter. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. The reason that we're missing it is because we're not paying attention to mass desire, and we're trying to create mass desire all by ourselves. And then it doesn't work. You're looking for public desire of a very private event. So not only is it happening out there, there's a trend of some sort, it's also got to be personally applicable for the person we're going to sell something to, right? So, and it's got to be really personal. They've got to feel it. It's interesting though, because there's some adds to this. Identifying shared desire is not creating shared desire. So it's just a little thing. Creating, this was fascinating. This is right from the book. Creating Desire is called education. And you will put $1 into your advertising and you will get $1 back for that. If you are educating your market and trying to create desire, you will not get leverage in your business ever. No big company even has enough money to educate and actually make a profit in their business. I see Deb thinking. So the goal with marketing and sales is you invest $1 in ad spending, or you invest the time and money and all of that, and you get $50 in return, right? So we're talking about a big difference. When you're educating people about desire, you will not get the kind of return on your investment as you want. When you tap into desire, that's where opportunity exists. And I'm going to get more specific. So even before.
Good, because I'm confused.
Perfect. Let's keep going, and then we'll see where we land. Knowing this is why so many business owners fail. They never tap into public spread of a private event. No single advertiser can afford to educate the public and create desire. Now, remember I talked about desire at the time of the cars. Maybe this will help a little bit, because I think if we just tune into some desires, this will help. And I think the next slide, I just want to see where, okay, yeah. There's some even more specific, because I can see the head going on. I'm going to keep with this and then I'll come back to it. No single advertiser can educate public and create desire. Advertiser. What you can do is focus on two things. So this will help, Dottie. There's two things. There's mass instinctual desires, like wanting to be seen as attractive, popular, smart, healthy. Like this is what Amanda is tapping into. Amanda is tapping into a mass instinctual desire of wanting to be seen as attractive. Look, amazing, naked. I'm like forgetting your button. Yeah, you can help me. Feel amazing naked. Okay, so she's taking a new idea, but she's tapping into mass instinctual desire. These desires that we have as human beings. There's lots of them. Or, okay, and I think a lot of us aren't necessarily doing that. Some of us, which I would say, so for me, the mass instinctual desire that I'm tapping into is fear about money. Okay, that's my mass instinctual desire. People don't want to feel fear about money. But then there's also catching a rising tide of a trend when it's imperceptible to most. Those are the most lucrative. Now you can come on board when somebody's already doing it, but we'll get into that later. Like if everybody's already targeting it. But do you see the difference between the two? So Dottie, you're tapping into mass instinctual desire.
I don't want to hurt anymore. That's what I'm tapping into.
I don't want to hurt anymore. Yeah. So that's a health. Yes. So that's a mass instinctual desire. People don't want to hurt. See that? Anyone? And then sometimes there's a trend. So for me, I actually cross both, and that's not a bad thing. So the trend would be people all of a sudden are getting really interested in woo-woo and spiritual stuff and trying to bring the spiritual into their practical. So that's a trend right now, not necessarily a mass instinctual desire. Because I think we're at the cusp of something about, I think the trend. That's I'm going to stick with that for now. But again, notice. So anyone want to tell us which one they've been targeting, or maybe it's both? You could take yourself off of you.
Yeah, Lisa, I think, well, you helped explain the rising tide a little bit, but I'm working with rolling out the Serenity Project, make peace with food and love your body now. Like right now, not next week, not 6 years from now, or after you feel amazing naked. I love Amanda, I love what she's doing, but I'm I'm kind of coming further behind, I'm coming in, I think, in a different place. And um, where I really think I'm hitting the masked instinctual desire is that we want to eat without judgment. We want to be able to nourish ourselves just where we are without all this madness and all this crazy crap that's coming at us from all angles.
Beautiful.
So that is where I think the mass instinctual desire is in what I'm offering on this particular thing. And I wonder if I've been hiding from this, but it's really a rising tide, which is just barely rising, but you helped me to see it's more than I realized. And that is, everybody's talking about mindful, but it's really somatic. I'm taking people into the somatic. And that's where there is kind of a new rise of people are starting to attune to that. So am I?
Yeah, you're both. You're both.
Okay.
Yep. Because you also have you aren't doing it with traditional, you're not solving the problem with traditional ways. And this would also apply to Dottie as well. You're using tapping, you're using spiritual, methodologies, that are emerging. So there's also a piece to that. But what I will say is that you do want, from what Eugene is teaching, is you want to be, you want to look at all of them. Look at all of the desires that you are satisfying. So that would be an exercise. I didn't necessarily write this down, but in the notes, like, what are all the desires that you're satisfying, mass desires that you're tuning into? And then what you're going to want to do is ultimately you will want to pick one predominant one, because you can't expect people to understand and digest. And this is the problem with a lot of sales pages, is we give them 20 and they're just like walking away overwhelmed, when in reality it could have been far more simple in picking the predominant one and really going deeper into that, for example. So let's see, what was my next slide? So when we do this, when we focus on the desires and we write them out, maybe that'll be a homework for tonight, is spend some time thinking about the desires that are happening out there in the world that you're tapping into. And interesting enough, as I looked at all of your business plans, this would be the area that I most often commented on, and that was the area that got missed the most. Tuning into this. What is the desire out there? People are touching upon it, but please go deeper. Wherever it meets you, go deeper with what we've been talking about here. Because then we can acknowledge the desire and offer a means to satisfy it. Find the most important dominant desire to focus on in our marketing. So it's kind of confirming what I said. And then Deb, let's see. It's a tough one. Does this work? Creating business communication that attracts ideal clients, which in turn validates their life purpose. I think, is your question, I think is this both? So you're tuning into what you are bringing. And this is actually what is missed in Eugene. So I'm glad that we're touching on this. So in Eugene Schwartz's book, he's basically written his book to admin. Okay. So like, he doesn't really care about like what your genius is. That's why I couldn't take any of that from the book. Okay. He's not focused on that. He's focused on, how does a copywriter write really good copy? How do you communicate your message? So we're here bridging these worlds together of what we find really interesting, what we're trying to create, and then having it meet in the middle of where it's tapping into mass desire. This does take, I've just spent 6 years working on it, so I'm going to say it takes some work. And the funniest thing, like my little story as you guys are processing this, I did not come up with the title. Notice, like, I came up with the title for Monica. Someone else in our Atlas mastermind helped Amanda come up with Feeling Amazing Naked. She didn't come up with that by herself. And I didn't come up with The Mindful Millionaire. Someone, my editor, my agent said, can I just slap this title on it? Because your title sucks. Can we just put this title on your book proposal as we send it out? I was like, it's not really written about that. And she's like, well, I think it might help. And they'll probably throw it out anyways. And I was like, okay, whatever, you know better. Now, you guys, what's so funny about that is it's actually working. People get it. And I didn't come up with it. So don't think that you are going to be the one necessarily that comes up with that thing. Where mass desire, I was like, my people are spiritual. They don't want to be millionaires. They don't want that. And then people come into the community and they're like, I don't have 2 pennies to rub together, but if you're going to show me something about becoming a millionaire, I am all yours. I am putty in your community. I'm like, what? So do you see that my passion was this thing? The world's passion, I didn't totally understand it. I needed some help to bring them together. Okay? Thankfully, I was not stupid to tell her she didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't even know how much experience my agent had, over 20 years. And she's like, yeah, this sounds good. I was like, I can't believe, when we got into it, I was like, I can't believe it's not taken. So you see what we're doing here. We're taking a very Yang, sell me some cigarettes book. We're taking all this inner work and we're bringing it together to create what we really, really want in the world. And we're not going to be selling cigarettes. Amen. It's funny. I was reading that, like, I can't believe I'm reading about selling cigarettes. Okay. So to do this, you need to focus on 3 things, and we'll pause and I want to check in. And you need to identify mass desire in your area of specialty. Okay. So this is our homework for tonight. You're going to be writing about mass desire in your area of specialty. Number 2 is you're going to figure out how much they know about your product and how it fits into satisfying their desire. I'm going to go into that in a little more detail. You don't have to do this tonight. We might be working on this tomorrow, but we're going to figure out how much the people that you target know about your product and how it fits into their desire. So this is Eugene Schwartz. We're going to adapt it a little. And then the 3rd is have an idea of how many other products have been presented to them before yours. So you can understand the landscape of what's going on in their head. Like, this is the secret to this book helping a whole bunch of people become, multimillionaires. A lot of direct marketers, internet marketers use this book, and this is the 3 kind of things that they use. So it's very, very Yang oriented. So I'm going to stop and check in. Anybody want to just chat about what I've already shared? Because this is big. I mean, the rest is details, but go back.
I'll ask a question, Lisa.
Yeah.
So if I think about my mass desire being, and let me know if this makes sense to you.
Yep.
I wrote down make business easier. Like, building your business can be easier than what everyone's making it.
Yep.
And then the trend, and I don't know if this is a trend or not, but this entrepreneurship is rampant. Everyone's starting a business. So is that the trend?
Yeah, that's the trend.
Okay.
That's the trend. But the making it easier it might be simplifying it a little bit.
That's what I was wondering.
The mass instinctual desire isn't to not have work take over your life.
Yeah.
The mass instinctual desire is I want to have I want to be able to work because I like working, but I don't want it to be everything.
Mm-hmm.
Desire to have a life outside of work.
Mhm.
I wanna have a
One
life
of the reasons people start businesses is so they don't have to do the things that they don't like to do or that they're not good at. So if you can frame that into not doing the things that you hate,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, that's the long explanation of, I think, what you're trying to get at or tap into.
Mm-hmm. Let's just articulate. I think when I nail that, it'll go. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because for many of us, when we touch into it, get talking about, our embodiment, there's a good chance when you touch into it, it will make you emotional. You'll feel emotion.
Mm.
So notice that. I think I've come across my next book, and the reason I knew is I literally wanted to cry the minute it hit me. And so some of us may have been working with our stuff for a long time, but there still may be a part of you that's been holding back in meeting that need, in meeting that mass desire. Like, did I really think early on, even when I started the book, did I really think that I could help people break free of their fear, their survival mentality, or their fear, like, because my guess is that the more you touch into this, the more you're going to touch into permission, which if you've done the I Prosper process, permission's a big one. So we start touching permission's the throat. So you may feel this kind of like, oh, wait, because giving yourself permission to fill that mass desire, to fulfill, to actually, to provide a solution that helps people with this mass desire. Feel how big that can be for some of us? That I could actually help people with this? I think it's why we don't look at the mass desire sometimes, because we don't feel like we're worthy of actually making a dent in the world with these things. But whether we serve one person, or a million people, it's actually the same action. We can help one person break free of their fear of money. We could help a million people. Does that make sense?
Lisa?
Yeah.
Is it true mass desire? Do people always know they have it, or do we have shadow mass desires?
Beautiful. Yep. You're right.
Like the one that came to mind for me, like what I thought was thinking about wanting to deal more with individual chakras to again break down, because it's so big what I'm doing. It's too many things. I'm grasping here and going, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to do everything. So I thought if I did one each chakra and I actually dealt with the biggest desire in each chakra, like helping them attain that through developing that chakra. And so one of the biggest ones is fear and the need for safety in the root. But I'm not sure very many of us like to admit our need for safety. It's a very shadow need. Our needs are a shadow need. Being needy is a shadow need, for instance. We're all needy, but we don't want to admit that.
Yes.
So,
and this is so interesting. I'm hoping I can find this, because may not totally capture, but I'll go afterwards. So yes, there can be shadow desires. I think that we have to pay attention to the educate. This is where we can get trapped and spend our whole life educating and never actualizing on it. Meaning helping somebody, like, where can you meet them right here, right now, with something that is top of their mind, that they're not able to sleep at night because this thing isn't solved. If you're trying to teach them about the shadow and then ultimately sell them something on the other side of that shadow, you're an educator. That should be done inside of the coaching experience. Focus on the thing that is keeping them up at night.
Right. And then you can still teach the other thing. You can, because especially with the chakras, they're all going to come together. But my question, I guess, would be then, there is such a thing. I could acknowledge and see desires out there that wouldn't necessarily be consciously acknowledged by my clients. So therefore it would not be a good way to go, because it would be more of an educator route, and they wouldn't want to admit it. So I'd have to find the desire that they're openly admitting to themselves.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now there was a caveat, and this is going to help Robin and a few of you. And I'm hoping I can find it, because I was like, oh man, this is a really big deal. People will not actually look at some issues of their own. And so we have to be really careful. That's what you brought up for me. I was like, oh yeah, because so like if you're selling life insurance, which is a really good example, people refuse to look at their own calamity. They will not look at their own death. They will not look at their own situation falling apart, but they will look at their family's situation. So like you can't sell life insurance by saying, when, talking about your death, what you talk about is what's going to happen for your wife and children. They will, people literally consistently will not look at certain situations. So if we take them there in our marketing, we've lost the battle. And I wish that I'm going to see if I can find it. Does this make sense? We have to be really, really careful. Mm-hmm. This is about like poking the bruise. If we poke the wrong bruise and we try to give them a really ugly situation when we're kind of marketing, people won't see themselves in that bad, negative situation. Just for the same reason that they won't buy life insurance, because they think about their own death. It's fascinating, isn't it? I may have to look for it, and I dog-eared so many pages, but it may be more of a tangent. So anyways, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, that was a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
I liked it too, because nurses are such self-deniers. They're always taking care of everybody else. So how does your pain affect your family? I like that approach.
Yes. Thank you.
Caregivers.
How does your pain affect your family?
Molly Rose, same thing. Molly, you may not be talking about some of the inside experience of what it's like for them. You might be talking only about their family. Are you with me? I can't see your picture. So does this make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yes.
Because they can totally see what the toll is on their family.
Yeah.
But they can't see the toll it's taking on themselves, because they're inside of running their business.
Mm-hmm.
They're living it. Yep. So
Lisa,
the mass desire, I just want to finish this thought. Yeah. The mass desire is, I want this, but I really want it for my family. See, I get chills when I say that. They can see themselves. Okay, what was the next question?
It's Marisa. I'm just wondering how far to drill down, like in the sense of, writing is something that every literate person does, that we're passionate about, that is a kind of thing unto itself that people have opinions, feelings, etc. about. But we know that underneath it's about self-expression. It's about leaving a legacy. It's about being seen in the world.
Yeah.
Do you keep kind of drilling when it's, onto that really like core emotional stuff, even when the thing you're selling is also a known entity, like helping you to write, or do you go to that why?
Yeah, this is fascinating. And I'm totally cheating, because Tom Bird, who really helped me, one of my writing coaches, has a very multi-7-figure business, literally helping people write. And he set it up just to give you an idea of how simple he's kept his business, because he's what I would consider a thought leader, kind of in that second tier where not everybody knows about him, but he's making a lot of money. He set up his business so that he could turn it off in 48 hours if he needed to. And he's running a multi-7-figure business. That's how successful he is with this thought leadership. So I'm going to give you a little bit of what he does. He hits home the idea that that book is inside of you, whether you like it or not. You're either going to get it out of you or you're going to die with it in you, and you're going to be thinking about it on your deathbed. He's probably not that extreme. But what he does is he goes to the next, he doesn't just talk about self-expression. He literally says, this stuff is inside of you. He calls it a book, but he's very clear in his audience. When you go to his workshops and there's 100 people for 3 days sobbing their way through writing their book, most of those books will never be published. It is literally therapy. And so he is teaching people how to use writing as the best therapy tool on the planet. And he's very clear about that. And then his next message is connect to the divine author within. That's his message. And that when you do that, what comes out is going to be so healing that your whole entire life is going to look differently. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but does this give you sort of an example?
Well, considering that my thing is like connect the sovereign writer within, I think that's actually a pretty big path for me right there. I've already have all those pieces. I just haven't been using the language in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it is inside of you. It's begging to come out. So this would be mass instinct. He's tying into mass desire, not a trend. In fact, I think a trend would belittle it, because you get into his conversations and he is so serious about holding space for you to get this out of you. And he's kind of like very militant, and like magical things happen. I go to his free workshops because I'm like, you could be advanced or beginner, and he's so good at holding space, and he will not give up on you. Therefore, you won't give up on yourself to let this come out, to get it out. Kind of like birthing is the way he approaches it. But it's mass desire. And this would be kind of playing with what Vicki was asking about, because in a bit, some of this stuff can be shadowish oriented. Like, I can't write. I don't know how to write. I went to him because he was saying that message. Like, I don't know how to do this. I can't get it. I look at a blank page. I get writer's block. He's like, bullshit. There's another way. Kind of yang oriented, super spiritual guy. But you see how he's like owning it, and it brings this beautiful thing out, because when we're super empowered to own our messages, and we're not like, oh, maybe, kinda, let me tell you what I think, but I'm not sure. Like, nobody wants that right now. They want us to be like willing to fall on the sword with our messages. Like, I'm so excited about it that I am like, here I am, and here's what I'm doing, and owning it. And like, he finds his people, and there's plenty of people who aren't his people, but like, that's part of being this thought leader, that I'm willing to own what I'm super excited about. He taught me a lot, not just about writing, but about the fact that you can be very stern and very like, almost like father figure in encouraging people to do things that they don't think that they can do. I think that is part of this thought leadership.
So how would you, if you were going to say the mass desire he speaks to is like, you can't, like, you're afraid you're going to die without saying what you have to say in this life?
That's the undertone. Yes.
Right.
That you do not want to die with your book inside of you. That's
Right.
what he's saying.
Okay.
You know, so
Right.
you don't want to die with with these, I mean, again, maybe it's not death, but it's like, what's the cost of
Right.
not getting this out onto paper? Your kids, you know, he uses things, I think I've heard him say, use stories about like what happens when somebody is able to share a story that now it's published and it goes to the family, and these grandkids know your life story because you took time to get it out, and all the
I
lessons you've
appreciate that
learned.
you keep it, it's tied obviously to the thing you're selling. Like, we're not getting into these like universal truths in this. I'm just, that's what I'm gleaning from you here, that it does really stay close to, because I'm in this particular industry, we're still talking about books, not leaving a legacy and thinking of next generations. You're including language in there that says, because I'm selling this particular thing is important. Okay. Thank you.
And again, notice how we just switched it to, sometimes people have, how many times have any of us done something for someone else, but we wouldn't do it for ourselves? So part of your messaging may be about, who are you creating this for? Creating it for your children? I mean, I know you've got a few clients on this call. They might even chime in, you know, Gwen and Katrina, like if the message had been something around this, would that have spoken to you? You know, maybe, but those are the things we're looking, this is where we get feedback and we try things and we kind of put it up there and ask people, would this have spoken to you? You know, you've been working with me for a while. Would this have caught your attention? Would this have been meaningful? Oh my, and maybe all of a sudden, I'll tell you one thing about feedback is, if you awaken a new interest in a client, like because of something you suggested, you're on the right track.
Hey, Lisa, will you be going over ways to ask, to survey and question, talk with our peeps to find out what their desires are?
Yeah, we could totally do that tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm more than happy. I mean, I'm focusing on, you know, I want to get this stuff solidified and let's see. So I had said about 2.5 hours. We're at the 2.5 hour mark. What I want to just kind of gauge it from the group. I am more than happy to go another half hour, but if we're going to lose a lot of folks, I don't want to do that. So can you tell me in the notes, maybe, if you're up for going? I mean, we could take a quick bathroom break.
Can you hear me? Oh, you're on mute.
There we go.
So right before you started giving us this whole like lowdown on how to sell all the things, the UPS guy came with my author's copy of my book, and it's in this box. Yay! And I'm afraid to open it, but it's in there.
I can't wait to see it.
It just felt like divine timing before, when you're like, here, this is the thing that's the secret of all the things. I'm like, oh, and I could use it to get this into the world.
Yes.
That's in this box, and my hands get shaky when I touch it. I'm gonna put it over there again. But
well, it's so funny because for many of us who have written a book, I think that this, like, I'm going to take what we're learning here and I'm going to channel it to my whole entire book launch is going to be around this. Like, this is it. Like, this is everything. And it's so simple. And yet it's just funny to me how, because a lot of people make a lot of money off of this without us knowing it. Because if we know this, then we don't really have to pay people too much money. We can focus on the simple stuff.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
It's awesome. So, okay. A few people are still away, but we'll go ahead and dive into this. So, interesting enough, I struggled with this and I was like, oh, I'll retype it. And I don't like sharing things that are sort of not kind of public available, whatever. But when I realized that this whole entire thing from Copy Hackers, which is where I've learned a lot of my copywriting stuff, which is awesome, and I love them and I endorse them, and I would heavily, say it's an awesome class. This is all from Eugene Schwartz's work, and he's not cited on it. So I saved a little bit of time in sharing the 5 stages of awareness, but it all comes from Eugene Schwartz's work. So the stages of awareness, I want to step back before I even go into this too much, is that stages of awareness help us to understand that when we are communicating with a group of people, they are going to be predominantly in one of these 5 stages. Now, they're not all going to be in one of these stages, but we're looking for the largest group of the people that we're targeting. Where are they in the stage of awareness, so that when we go to communicate with them and we want to tell them about what we're doing and what we're offering, we can only be communicating to somebody as if they were in one stage of awareness. If we try to create, let's say, an email or a sales page or I don't know what else, all the different things, we create. If we are trying to speak to them from as if they were in many of these stages, the message will miss the mark. And so the idea is there's one client, with one problem in one stage of awareness. And that when we understand that as we create different material, we're looking, from my perspective, if I've got 11,000 people on my email list, I'm looking, I don't have it targeted where I know where they're all in different stages. I'm looking for, out of that 11,000 people, what is the most likely stage of awareness that my audience is in. And the more I'm able to lean into that, the more impact I'm going to have when I try to sell a product or I try to bring somebody to a workshop. So this allows us to target our message so that it reaches the most number of people that are going to be interested in working with us. Does that make sense? And it's not easy. It's never over. It's never one and done. But the more we understand stages of awareness, the easier our communication becomes. So they've simplified it here. It's more complicated, and I'm happy to talk about it specifically tomorrow more. But here it's like you're going from unaware. This audience is not the people that we typically want to be focused on. These are the ones who need to be heavily educated about what we're doing. They're unaware if they haven't yet identified their pain and your role as a solution to said pain. So they're not in touch with their desire yet. This would be where you're educating them about their desire. You don't want to be doing that. So we're going to just say, let's not go after unaware. Pain aware is when people are in they know they have a pain, but they don't yet know that solutions exist. It's also not an ideal situation for us. In fact, if somebody has found their way on your email list or they're finding their way to your material, it's very likely that they are in stage 3 to 5. So solution aware means that they have felt their pain, they know they have their pain, and pain / desire, you can kind of use them interchangeably just to keep it simple, but they know that a solution exists for it, and now they're kind of scanning the marketplace to see who might be the one to help me with this challenge that I have. Okay, so then you move into product aware, that this is when someone, they know their desire, they know their pain, right? They are product aware if they know your solution is one of the possible solutions to their pain. So they're leaning in, they're really listening. Like, what are you going to tell me that's going to help me sort of decide that your product is the thing that is going to help me with what I need? Okay? And then the final one, most aware, is when they know your solution is one of the solutions and it's likely to be the best solution to helping them. So when you're most aware, then typically you lean forward and buy. Now, Eugene Schwartz's model is a little bit different than this, but it's essentially the same. One thing that I will say is in most aware, if you're a Black Friday shopper, like I've confessed I am, Black Friday is all about most aware clients. So we know what TV set we want. We know what Mac we want. We know what we want. There's no description, right? We're just like, it's all about price and which price is going to be best. And then I'm going to buy it there. So most aware is actually an interesting kind of place because it can be also, you can see it as a commoditization. And it's not, can you target 3 and 4? Let's see, I'll come back to that. It's like most of the time we are not in most aware either. And it's a very competitive and it's all about price. So it's something to pay attention to. Most of us are going to be focused on 3 and 4. And yes, there's a good chance that until we perfect it and we have really sophisticated sort of targeting mechanisms as people maybe come into our email, you know, if you know Ryan Levesque's work about Ask, it's like when somebody comes into your database, they're answering questions. And then the reason you do that is you're deciding where are they in the process. And then your communications are very targeted to the message, making sure that the message is meeting them where they're at. So the more you understand where they're at and what they need from you, then the better able you are to serve them and to move them into them deciding that what you do is the best solution of all. So you can probably do 3 and 4 simultaneously. You probably automatically do it without even realizing it, but everyone says it's better to understand and really target. So like for me, I am most like the Millionaire, the book is going to be oriented to people who are pain aware, or actually I'd say solution aware, because they've got to have enough trust that there's actually a solution to their pain. So they know they're suffering in some way with their relationship with money, and then they believe that there's a solution. They're just not sure what. So that would probably be oriented to number 3. Any questions about this, about stages of awareness? What you can also do, and this might add on to the homework piece, is review your business canvas and make a note about what stage of awareness your clients are in, because this would be a great thing for us to explore tomorrow about kind of looking at it and seeing where is your client and how might you be speaking to them, meeting them where they're at, because you can imagine that you're going to talk to somebody differently once you identify what is going on here. You know, you're not educating them so much about maybe the pain and the desire. You're talking about what is next in the equation for them. Like you're going to be very oriented to talking about the solution and how your solution, you're going to be moving them from solution aware to product aware to most aware where they buy from you. But we are the guide in our marketing. We're the one giving them the information, and we're building trust in the process of moving them through these awarenesses, right? They start to trust us because we're teaching them as we move to ultimately them making a decision. Again, knowing that there's a mass instinctual desire behind all of this. I learned these 5 stages of awareness a few years ago, but because I didn't hear about mass instinctual desire, I just dove into these, and I feel like it's really important to see both. How does this fit in with free webinars? Are we always aiming freebies at number 3? Great question. I would say yes, but I mean, solution aware, when they felt their pain, discover the solution exists for it. I think a lot of our marketing is at stage 3 for what we're creating, because we're creating really unique solutions in what we do. And if we can bring them in at solution aware, where they have to believe that you have something to offer them, or they wouldn't sign up for the webinar. Yep. Yeah, it's a safe place for many of us to be focused. So any questions about that? And again, you've got this access to this, and we can talk about it more. What I want to do, and maybe this will be something that I knew that time, it's like I put some different things together and I didn't know how all it would run. But what I did, and you could do this in your workbook perhaps, is look at the next stage, because now we're diving into the ideal target clients. And I'm just going to go over this briefly. I'm not necessarily going to have you do too much in the way of answering the questions, but I just want to kind of talk about this. First of all, there's a really good chance that many of us are working with some ideal clients, and we're also working with some clients that aren't ideal. And I think that as we grow as business owners, especially in that, early stage of building our business, it's really important that we, at least once a year, are looking at those who really fit with who we should be serving, that their talents and our gifts are meeting what their greatest needs are. But whenever we make a decision to kind of let go of those that don't necessarily fit, we open up the door for more ideal clients that, are giving you the energy and the inspiration and the feeling of success that you're wanting, and the magic of you comes to life the more you're working with your ideal clients. And that's why I wanted to touch on this a little bit more. So the questions I prepared is, when it comes to who you serve, what is the desire you're tapping into? So that was the homework assignment. I said, for me, it's reducing fear, and then the trend around inner understanding. For Amanda's, being seen as more attractive, mass instinct. For Monica, learning about how to market on Facebook. What are their most urgent needs? Before people come to you, what do things look and feel like in their life, health, and business? And I think what we also learned today is in their family life. I'm going to add that right now. Is that could be a big one. Or their job. Before they come to you, what do things look like and feel like in their life and business? And, what are their urgent needs because of that? What do you offer in the way of solutions? And again, I think why I wanted to have a couple days, and you guys will have this material for a while, but I do want you to sit with this. Maybe it'll be a week or two from now, where you may find that you're able to even go deeper into the deep-rooted benefits that your clients experience as a result of working with you. This is something that, back to storytelling, until I started working with my clients and writing their stories, I think that it's easy to not understand the depth of what we're doing and how we're helping people. But the more we see it and we embrace it and we understand it, the better able we are to communicate what that vision is for people who are coming to our work. So going into the deep-rooted benefits. And then where do you find them? Where are these target clients hanging out now? And I think that even touches a little bit upon what you were asking, Vicki, about. You might even remind me of your question. But these questions would be very helpful to explore tonight, you've probably already done some of this work, but does that make sense if we were to work on that a little bit more? Let me see what I had next. Yeah, that's where I would leave it. I think that's plenty. Any questions about thinking about these questions about questions?
Lisa, so if I've had an email list over the years, but I haven't been real clear, and also I've mixed in podcast people from, you know, just a more general Conscious Life Awakened speaker series, what do I want to work with? I mean, because a list is such a precious thing. Do I want to work with the list and get to know their urgent needs? Or do I want to do all this work and figure out that my list isn't aren't really my clients and go another direction?
Just tell me what your head and heart says.
Immediately, I think, you know me, it's always both, right? There's always a balance. But my first thing is to dive in deeper and really get to know my list, to get to know who's been attracted in one way or another to what I'm doing and why. And then that almost feels important to do before I go too much down here. Like a lot of stuff is coming up for me, but nothing's like absolute. And it feels like that's the one thing that might give me more direction.
Yeah, I think you've said a few things earlier, and I know we've talked about it offline, and you guys, other people may feel this way too. There is no such thing as non-buyers. People will buy things that they believe will help them. Granted, they may not spend millions, dollars on it, or tens of thousands or thousands or even hundreds, but like that belief that they won't buy, I think isn't serving you. I think that when you dive into, there's a part of what's going on in the community that you've built that my guess is you haven't totally seen yet. And that collecting their feedback through surveying them would be very, very, very powerful right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like a toddler with it. I feel like, am I gonna, take a couple steps and fall down? And not about how it looks, but just because it's a lot to take one's time to do that. And then you're wondering, well, do I know what I'm doing and even what I'm asking? So I'm hoping I can make it beneficial for both of us.
And there's two types of research, and this is going to answer some of what you talked about. And I did my minor and my MBA in market research, and so I just love this topic. There's two types of research. There's qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is when you were to reach out and get 5 people, let's say, that are willing to get on the phone with you and have a deep dive conversation about, like, what are their pressing issues? What is top of mind? What are they struggling with? How has your work helped them? It's like deep dive conversation, on the phone or Zoom or something like that. Qualitative. Quantitative is when you go out with a mass survey and you sort of say, hey, I'm offering a raffle. I always like to give some kind of gift. So I'm offering a coaching session with me, something rich, like $500 value or $250 value, something that says, I'm going to give one of these away randomly. Please answer this survey. It'll help me understand what I'm doing. That's quantitative. So you're going to get a lot of insight coming in. It's actually good to do both. The best possible way is you do the qualitative conversations, and what you learn in the qualitative is then created over to a quantitative study. Okay. So you take what you learned from those deep dive conversations, you craft your questions accordingly, and then you put them out to the mass in like a Survey Gizmo or Survey Monkey, and you send it out and say, hey, I'm offering this reward for somebody who answers. Okay. In those conversations that you have, the qualitative conversations, you are probably going to help people in those conversations anyways. You don't have to offer something necessarily. You might say, hey, I'm willing to explore a question that you have for me, you know, at the end of the conversation. So you're just giving them that. You might already have it happen even while they're sharing things, but you want to make sure and have a good boundary where you say, oh my gosh, I see some things I can help you with. If you'd like, at the end, I'm more than happy to talk, but first let's focus on what we came here for.
Boundaries.
Been there, done that. So I do surveying all the time. More recently, what we're doing is when people come into the Mindful Millionaire community, we're asking questions. We're keeping that in a database. I'm doing that. So I have 400 or 500 people who have shared incredibly helpful tips and tools, which is shaping the future of my company. We also, when somebody gets a freebie from our from Wealth Clinic, they are invited to say, what brought you here? And it's a type form. And maybe 10% of the people will give a little blurb. I saw you on a podcast, I blah, blah, blah. And we're also keeping that in a database. And when I go to create copy for anything, I go into those, you know, hundreds. I think I've got about 700 or 800 comments, and I look at that and I'm like, is this a language that they're using? Are they going to understand what I'm talking about? You know, like I'm paying attention to those things.
Nice.
So research is priceless. And I'll tell you, the other thing that's really cool is, let's say the media does come calling, then it's so good because you're like, I'm speaking to them. That's my audience. There may be 1 million people out there, you know, on NBC, but I want these people. This is what's important to them. So you shape your conversations in a podcast summit. You shape for their needs, not for everybody's needs, but for what they're telling you they want.
That's really great answer, Lisa. Thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you. Great question. What else is coming up? Because I'm not gonna give you any more information. I think we've more than explored. And like, wow, that was a lot. You guys are awesome for being able to stick with me for this long. But I know, like I said, you might come back and, you know, watch it again. What else is coming up? Even if it's just a free, you know, just kind of share some feedback of what's happening.
I've got a question.
Yes.
For mine, I mean, I have my private practice and the people that I work with there, but what I'm really wanting to do is create something new. And so I'm wondering, like, I don't, as far as my ideal client and all of that, in some ways I feel like I'm going to be creating that versus, so it's that space of, I don't have a big list. I don't have a lot to look back on. I mean, I do have clients, and so I can use that as who are my ideal clients and people that I would want to go forward with. But I feel like part of this is also what I'm trying to figure out.
And so for you, because I know a little bit more, it's about picking one thing, even like one person that you perhaps have loved working with. They've expressed interest in the things that you're talking about for the next chapter, and asking yourself, what is going to tip me over the edge in taking action? Would it be a conversation with that person or a couple people that look like them to run by? Like, because some of us really need some validation of like knowing that we're on the right track. So you could set up what I talked about with Vicki, but it's a little different orientation where you're actually saying, I've got a few things that I'm thinking about presenting. Would you hop on a phone call with me and let me walk you through what I'm planning? And would you give me feedback on that and tell me if it's something that's interesting to you or not?
Okay.
And you could even say, what would you be willing to pay for it? You know, like you can ask anything in those conversations, but what I would want you to be doing is making it so that there's no possible way that you're not going to do that. Like by the time we're done tomorrow, you know the person, you've already sent the email to them, you know, like what can you do that you're already starting for many of us, it's all about breaking free of inertia. So we get these great ideas, but we have no momentum on them. And the biggest job I want you to be doing, if that's you, is like, what are you going to do next? And you're going to do it before we're done tomorrow, at noon or something. Like, you've already taken that step.
Okay.
There's no point of like getting out now kind of thing. And then learning what they say. They may be like, wow, that's awesome. And then they may also say, well, if you did this or that, like even planning this workshop, like I presented the idea at the end of I Prosper. It just sort of spontaneously came through Mindful Millionaire. I had an idea, there was some interest. And then Dawn, she's not here today, but she was like, oh yeah, I love it. And then I presented some stuff to her and she's like, yeah, I'm not so excited anymore. And I was like, okay. And I mean, I've been tweaking from that moment until this moment today of what was going to be presented, listening, watching, getting feedback, even in the process of trying to bring all of you together, that we can make it up as we go. We can change, we can pivot. And yeah, I think that's the best way to approach all of this. There is no such thing as failure when you are actually taking action. It's bullshit that we think that failure is like a roadblock in the process of trying to make it happen. There is no such thing as failure. You're doing it.
It's called steps.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
okay.
thank you. Anything else before we sign off? And I will try to get this replay out very quickly so that in case you want to go back and watch parts of it, I'll get that out to you this afternoon. Take a little bit of time.
I had never heard of the idea of the mass instinctual desire. Never heard of it. It's like, okay, now I know I'm on the right track. People do not want to hurt. I mean, you can watch a TV for an hour, and there's all these different commercials for different products for pain relief. I get all kinds of stuff on Facebook. I've got this program, I've got this program, I've got this program. I'm on the right track. I was thinking it wouldn't work necessarily, but there's an awful lot of caring people out there who help others at the cost of themselves.
Yeah, and I'm going to come back to this guy, right? Phil Jones, 133 pages. We've all written this much. Okay, $1 million a year. Companies are buying this in mass for their employees. Now, any of us could have created this idea, but I used him as a perfect example of, exactly what to say. So there was a mass desire in a moment of people saying, I never say the right thing. I say the wrong thing at all the wrong times, and it hurts me. Okay? He tapped into a mass instinctual desire of saying the right thing at the right time. He also caught up, the part where he had a trend is self-publishing. That's why he's making so much money. I can sell 1 million copies. I'm not going to probably make 1 million. I don't know. It's crazy, right? He's making a lot of money. He's not having to sell too many books. I think the book, what is it going for? $14.99. He's making a lot of money because he self-published it. So that's his trend. So that was his distribution. But honestly, folks, I'm going to guess that every single one of you have no freaking clue that you are actually one move away from making that same kind of money if you wanted to. You are so close. You are so close. And it may happen in this life, it may not, but like, don't ever discount the fact that conditions come together very quickly, and it can be as simple as creating the right book at the right time. It can be having the right message. Like, we don't know, but at least we're here trying to figure it out. And that is so admirable, because a very small portion of the people on the planet are trying to figure this stuff out, like you guys are, like all of us are. So it's really exciting, super exciting, even after 3 hours of talking about it.